The champagne bottle in Naomi's hand felt cold against her palm as she stood frozen in the doorway of her husband's office. The glass doors had been unlocked. The reception desk sat empty. And there, on the leather couch where Trevor claimed to work late so many nights, her husband moved on top of his assistant Brittany, both of them completely naked. But it wasn't just the sight that paralyzed her. It was the conversation she'd heard while standing in the hallway, waiting to surprise him. "When are you going to tell her?" Brittany had asked, her voice breathy. "Right after the sale goes through. My lawyer says I'm entitled to half of everything. $25 million, baby. Then we can start our real life." Trevor had laughed, that same laugh Naomi had fallen in love with 8 years ago. "She's so busy with that company, she doesn't even notice I've been moving money around for months. By the time she realizes what's happening, it'll be too late." "What if she fights it?" "With what? I've got access to everything. Her passwords, her accounts, her business files. I've been documenting every time she prioritized work over our marriage. Any judge will see she's married to her company, not to me." They had both laughed then, and Naomi had pushed open the door, still holding the champagne she'd brought to celebrate the biggest achievement of her life. Now they stared at her, Trevor's eyes wide with shock, Brittany scrambling to cover herself with a throw pillow. "Naomi, I can explain," Trevor started, but his words felt hollow, rehearsed. She looked at the champagne bottle, then at them, then back at the bottle. For a moment, she imagined throwing it, watching it shatter against the wall. But that wasn't who she was. That wasn't how she won. "I sold my company today," Naomi said, her voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside her chest. "For $50 million. I came here to celebrate with my husband." She set the champagne on his desk, the bottle making a soft thud against the wood. "But I see you're already celebrating something else." "Naomi, wait." Trevor grabbed his pants, trying to stand. "Don't." She held up one hand, and something in her voice made him freeze. "I heard everything. Every single word." Brittany's face went pale. Trevor's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "You'll be hearing from my attorney," Naomi said, and turned toward the door. "You can't just leave." Trevor shouted behind her. "We need to talk about this." Naomi paused at the doorway but didn't turn around. "No, we really don't. You already made your plans. Now I'll make mine." She walked out of his office, down the elevator, and into the parking garage where her car waited. Only when she was safely inside, doors locked, did she let herself shake. Her hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel, her breath coming in short gasps. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of building a life together. And he'd been planning to rob her blind. She looked at herself in the rearview mirror. Her dark skin glowed under the parking garage lights, her natural hair pulled back in the neat bun she always wore for important meetings. She'd worn her best navy suit today, the one that made her feel powerful and professional. She'd felt invincible this morning when the contracts were signed. Now she felt like a fool. No, she corrected herself. She wasn't a fool. She was a woman who'd just received critical information. And Naomi had built a $50 million company from nothing by knowing exactly what to do with information. She pulled out her phone and started making calls. By midnight, she had 3 appointments scheduled. A divorce attorney for tomorrow at 9. A private investigator for tomorrow at 11. And a forensic accountant for tomorrow at 2. She drove to a hotel instead of going home, checked in under her maiden name, and lay in the unfamiliar bed staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow the real work would begin. The divorce attorney's office overlooked the city from the 40th floor, all glass and steel and power. Sharon Mitchell had a reputation for being ruthless, expensive, and worth every penny. "Tell me everything," Sharon said, settling into her chair across from Naomi. Naomi recounted the previous night, keeping her voice steady and factual. Sharon took notes, her expression never changing. "How long have you been married?" 8 years. "Any prenuptial agreement?" "No." Naomi had been young and in love, and Trevor had seemed offended by the suggestion. "Children?" "No." "Good. That simplifies things." Sharon tapped her pen against her notepad. "You said you overheard him mention moving money around. Do you have access to your financial accounts?" "All of them. Joint accounts, business accounts, everything." "Don't touch anything yet. Don't move money, don't close accounts, don't do anything that could be seen as suspicious. We need to document everything first." Sharon leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me access to everything, bank statements, tax returns, business records, everything from the past 5 years. Then you're going to live your normal life while we build our case." He said he's been documenting times I prioritized work over our marriage. Sharon smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. Let him. Because we're going to document something much more interesting. Financial fraud, possibly embezzlement, and infidelity. By the time we're done, he won't get a dime. The private investigator, James Rodriguez, met Naomi in a coffee shop near her hotel. He was older, with gray at his temples and sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything. I need to know everywhere he goes, everyone he meets with, and every transaction he makes, Naomi said. How long has the affair been going on? I don't know. That's part of what I need you to find out. James nodded, making notes in a small leather journal. I'll need photos of both of them, their work schedules, vehicle information, anything that helps me track their movements. Naomi had come prepared. She slid a folder across the table containing everything he'd need. I also need to know about money, she added. Bank accounts, property, anything financial that doesn't add up. That's usually where we find the most interesting information, James said. People can hide affairs, but money always leaves a trail. The forensic accountant, Dr. Patricia Holmes, worked out of a small office that contradicted her impressive reputation. But within 10 minutes of reviewing Naomi's financial records, she'd found the first discrepancy. Here, Patricia pointed at her computer screen. This transfer of $15,000 to an account I don't recognize. It's labeled as a business expense, but the routing number doesn't match any of your regular vendors. Naomi leaned closer, her heart pounding. Can you trace it? Give me a week. If there's money missing, I'll find it. Calibrated narrative tone and advanced to next chapter. By the end of that first week, Naomi had 3 thick folders of evidence. James had photographed Trevor and Brittany at restaurants, hotels, and an apartment Naomi had never known existed. Patricia had traced over $200,000 in unauthorized transfers from business accounts to offshore holdings. And Naomi had played the perfect wife, coming home each night with a smile, asking Trevor about his day, pretending nothing had changed. How was work? She asked over dinner one evening, watching him cut into his steak. Busy. The Anderson project is taking longer than expected. He didn't meet her eyes. And Brittany? Is she helping with that? Trevor's hand stilled for just a moment. She's been useful, yes. I'm sure she has. That night, while Trevor slept beside her, Naomi lay awake making calculations. Not just financial ones, though those mattered. She calculated every lie, every betrayal, every moment he'd looked her in the eye and deceived her. She calculated exactly how much justice would cost. And she smiled in the darkness because she could afford it. Sharon's office had become Naomi's second home over the past month. Today they were reviewing the final pieces of their strategy. The good news is that everything is legally yours, Sharon explained, spreading documents across her desk. The business was solely in your name. The sale proceeds went into an account only you control. He has no legal claim to any of it. Then what's the bad news? The bad news is what he's already stolen. Patricia's final count shows $340,000 missing from various business accounts over the past 2 years. That's felony embezzlement. Naomi felt her stomach tighten. Can we prove it was him? The accounts were accessed using his login credentials. The money went to offshore accounts in his name. And, Sharon pulled out another document, we have email records of him instructing Brittany to help move the funds. Email records? Your IT department keeps backups of everything, including personal emails sent from company computers. Sharon's smile was sharp. They were sloppy. What about the divorce? We file on grounds of adultery, which in this state affects asset division. We also file criminal charges for embezzlement. We freeze all joint accounts immediately. And we get a restraining order preventing him from accessing any of your business assets. When? Tomorrow. I've already prepared all the paperwork. Sharon leaned back in her chair. Are you ready for this to get ugly? Naomi thought about that question. She'd spent 8 years building a life with Trevor, supporting his career, trusting him with her heart and her future. She'd given him everything. And he'd repaid her by planning to rob her blind. I'm ready, she said. The next morning, Naomi went to work as usual. She attended her meetings, reviewed her emails, and pretended everything was normal. At precisely 2 in the afternoon, Sharon called. It's done. The accounts are frozen. The restraining order is in place. And the sheriff is serving Trevor at his office right now. Naomi stood at her office window looking down at the city below. Somewhere in one of those buildings, Trevor was receiving the worst news of his life. She felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Her phone rang an hour later. Trevor's number flashed on the screen. She let it go to voicemail. Then he called again. And again. By the fifth call, she blocked his number. James called that evening with an update. Trevor went straight to Brittany's apartment after being served. They argued for 2 hours. I have it all on video. Send everything to Sharon, Naomi said. Already done. There's something else you should know. The police are involved now. Financial Crimes Division. They want to talk to you about pressing charges. Set it up. That night, Naomi stayed at her hotel room and ordered room service. She poured herself a glass of wine, opened her laptop, and reviewed the trust documents that now protected her $50 million. Trevor couldn't touch it. His lawyer couldn't touch it. It was hers, completely and legally protected. She'd won the first battle. But the war was just beginning. Detective Lisa Barnes sat across from Naomi in a plain interview room at the police station. She was professional, direct, and clearly experienced with financial crimes. We've reviewed the evidence your forensic accountant provided, Detective Barnes said. The transfers alone are enough for embezzlement charges. But there's something else we found while investigating your husband's financial activities. Naomi straightened in her chair. What did you find? Your company before you sold it, what exactly did it do? We developed proprietary software for inventory management. Retail companies used our systems to track products, predict trends, optimize ordering. And this software contained trade secrets? Algorithms? Proprietary code. Yes, that's what made it valuable. Why? Detective Barnes slid a folder across the table. Because we found evidence that your husband and his assistant have been selling that information to your competitors. Naomi opened the folder, her hands suddenly cold. Inside were bank records showing payments from 3 different companies, all competitors she recognized, to an LLC registered in Trevor's name. How long has this been going on? At least 18 months, possibly longer. The payments totaled just over $600,000. Naomi felt dizzy. He sold my work. My company's intellectual property. Corporate espionage is a federal crime. So is wire fraud, which these transactions constitute. The FBI is interested in this case. The FBI? Some of these companies are publicly traded. This could affect stock prices, shareholder value. It's serious. Detective Barnes leaned forward. I need you to tell me everything you know about your husband's access to your company's systems. For the next 2 hours, Naomi detailed Trevor's involvement in her business. How she trusted him to review contracts. How he'd had access to her office, her computer, her passwords. How she'd shared everything with him because he was her husband. I was so stupid, she said finally, her voice breaking for the first time. No, Detective Barnes said firmly. You were trusting. He was criminal. There's a difference. When Naomi left the police station, she sat in her car for a long time, processing everything. The affair had hurt. The financial theft had enraged her. But this, selling her work, betraying her professional achievements, felt like a violation of everything she'd built. She drove to Sharon's office without calling ahead. I want him destroyed, Naomi said when Sharon's assistant finally let her in. Not just divorced. Not just charged. Destroyed. Sharon nodded slowly. The FBI involvement changes things. We're not just talking about a messy divorce anymore. We're talking about federal charges, possible prison time. Good. For both of them. Brittany was an active participant in the corporate espionage. Even better, Naomi thought, though she didn't say it aloud. Over the next week, the case exploded. The FBI seized Trevor's computers, his phones, his records. They interviewed Brittany, who immediately hired a lawyer and stopped cooperating. They contacted the competing companies who'd purchased the stolen information. The local business news picked up the story. Tech entrepreneur's husband charged with corporate espionage. Naomi's name was in every article, though Sharon had coached her to say nothing to the press. But the court of public opinion didn't need her comments. The facts spoke for themselves. Naomi's phone rang constantly, reporters, old colleagues, former employees calling to offer support. She ignored most of them, focusing on the only thing that mattered, making sure Trevor paid for what he'd done. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when Naomi arrived for the preliminary hearing. Sharon walked beside her, one hand on Naomi's elbow, guiding her through the crowd. Ms. Brooks, how do you feel about your husband's arrest? Naomi, are you worried about your company's reputation? Will you be testifying against him? Sharon's voice cut through the noise. Ms. Brooks has no comment at this time. Please direct all questions to her attorney. Inside, the courthouse was quieter but no less tense. Naomi sat in the gallery while Trevor was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed in front of him. He looked thinner, older, desperate. Their eyes met across the courtroom, and Naomi felt nothing but cold determination. The judge reviewed the charges: embezzlement, wire fraud, corporate espionage, conspiracy. Each charge carried years of potential prison time. Trevor's lawyer, a nervous young man who looked overwhelmed, asked for bail. "Your Honor, my client is not a flight risk. He has ties to the community." The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Angela Chin, interrupted. "Your Honor, the defendant has already demonstrated his willingness to steal and hide money through offshore accounts. He has the means and the motivation to flee. The state requests he be held without bail." The judge considered for a moment, then ruled. Bail is set at $2 million. Trevor's lawyer slumped. Naomi knew he didn't have access to that kind of money anymore. She'd made sure of it. Outside the courtroom, a familiar face waited by the elevator. Brittany, looking nothing like the confident woman from Trevor's office. Her hair was pulled back severely, her face pale without makeup, her clothes simple and subdued. She stepped toward Naomi, and Sharon immediately moved between them. "Don't," Sharon warned. "I just want to talk," Brittany said, her voice shaking. "Please. Just 5 minutes." Naomi considered walking away. But part of her wanted to hear what this woman could possibly have to say. 2 minutes, she said. "Right here with my attorney present." Brittany nodded, grateful. "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything, but I am. I didn't know he was stealing from you. I thought—" She stopped, shaking her head. "It doesn't matter what I thought. I was wrong. You helped him sell my company's trade secrets. He told me it was his information, that he'd helped develop it, that he had a right to it. I believed him." Naomi laughed, bitter and sharp. "You believed the married man you were sleeping with? How convenient." Brittany flinched. "I know you have no reason to help me, but the FBI is saying I could go to prison. I have a daughter. She's only 7. Please, if there's anything you can do." "Stop." Naomi held up her hand. "You want my help? After sleeping with my husband? After helping him steal from me? I made a mistake." "No. A mistake is sending an email to the wrong person. A mistake is forgetting an appointment. You made choices. You chose to get involved with a married man. You chose to help him commit crimes. And now you want me to fix the consequences?" Tears ran down Brittany's face, but Naomi felt nothing. "I hope your daughter has someone better than you to look up to," Naomi said, and walked to the elevator. Sharon followed, and as the doors closed, she squeezed Naomi's shoulder. "That was hard." "It should have been harder," Naomi said. "I wanted to scream at her, to ask her what she thought would happen. But she's not worth my energy. What matters now is the trial." "When?" 6 months. Maybe less if they plead guilty." Naomi nodded, already planning her next moves. 6 months to rebuild her life. 6 months to figure out who she was without Trevor. 6 months to become someone even stronger than before. The divorce proceedings were separate from the criminal trial, but they moved faster. Within 3 months, Naomi sat in family court listening to Trevor's lawyer try to argue for community property division. "Your Honor, my client contributed to the household during the 8 years of marriage. While Ms. Brooks was building her company, Mr. Turner provided emotional support, household management." Sharon stood, cutting him off. "Your Honor, the defendant also stole $340,000 from Ms. Brooks' business accounts, sold her intellectual property to competitors for $600,000, and committed adultery with his assistant for at least 2 years. I'd say any contribution he made was thoroughly negated." The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, looked unimpressed with Trevor's lawyer. "I've reviewed the evidence. Mr. Turner's financial crimes against Ms. Brooks are documented and undisputed. His infidelity is proven. I see no basis for awarding him any portion of Ms. Brooks' assets." Trevor's lawyer tried again. "But Your Honor, the business was built during the marriage. Using Ms. Brooks' initial capital, her education, her expertise, and her labor. Mr. Turner not only failed to contribute, he actively stole from it. The court awards Ms. Brooks full ownership of all assets, including the proceeds from the business sale. Mr. Turner is ordered to pay restitution for all stolen funds, plus damages, totaling $1,200,000. Trevor stood suddenly. "I don't have that kind of money." The judge's gaze turned icy. "You should have thought of that before committing felony theft." "Sit down, Mr. Turner." Trevor's face went red, but he sat. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "Mr. Turner is ordered to pay Ms. Brooks' legal fees, which total $75,000 to date. This court grants Ms. Brooks a divorce on grounds of adultery and financial malfeasance. The marriage is dissolved. Just like that, 8 years ended. Naomi walked out of the courthouse a single woman, legally free and financially protected. The press waited outside, their cameras flashing. This time, Sharon nodded and Naomi stepped up to the microphones. "I want to say something to anyone who's ever been betrayed by someone they trusted," Naomi said, her voice steady and clear. "You are not alone. You are not weak for trusting. You are not foolish for loving. But you are powerful enough to rebuild. You are strong enough to fight back. And you deserve justice." The reporters shouted questions, but Naomi was already walking away, Sharon at her side. That night, alone in her hotel room, Naomi finally let herself cry. Not for Trevor, not for the marriage that was over, but for the woman she'd been. The one who'd trusted so completely, who'd believed in forever. She mourned that innocence, that faith. And then she put it away because tomorrow she had plans to make. 6 months after the divorce, Naomi stood in front of a crowd of 200 women at the grand opening of her foundation. The Phoenix Initiative, she'd named it. 4 women rising from the ashes of financial abuse. "I started this foundation because I learned something important," Naomi told the crowd. Financial abuse is invisible. It happens to smart women, successful women, women who think they're equal partners in their marriages. And it leaves scars that last long after the relationship ends. She put $5 million of her own money into the foundation, hiring counselors, attorneys, and financial advisors. They helped women understand their rights, protect their assets, and rebuild their lives. The work gave Naomi purpose beyond revenge. Each woman she helped felt like healing a piece of her own broken trust. That's where she met Andre Mitchell, a corporate attorney who volunteered his time teaching women about financial contracts and asset protection. He was tall, with kind eyes and a quiet strength that reminded Naomi of everything Trevor wasn't. "You're doing incredible work here," he said after one of his workshops. "Thank you. Your class was excellent. I had 3 women tell me they're going to check their credit reports tonight because of what you said. That's the goal." He hesitated, then added, "I read about your case in the news. What you went through and how you fought back. It's inspiring." Naomi had heard that word a lot lately. Inspiring. It felt strange being admired for surviving betrayal. "I just did what I had to do," she said. "That's what makes it inspiring. You didn't give up. You didn't let him win." They started talking more after that. Coffee before foundation meetings. Lunch to discuss legal strategies for the women they were helping. Slowly, carefully, a friendship developed. Andre never pushed for more. Never asked about her past beyond what she wanted to share. He treated her like an equal, respected her opinions, and genuinely seemed to care about the work she was doing. "I don't know if I can trust anyone again," Naomi admitted one evening over dinner. They'd been working on a particularly difficult case, and the conversation had turned personal. "That's understandable," Andre said. "Trust isn't something you owe anyone. It's something you give when you're ready." "What if I'm never ready?" "Then you're never ready." "But I don't think that's true. I think you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. And strong people heal even when it's hard." Naomi looked at him, really looked at him. At his honest face, his gentle smile, his patient presence. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything. Why do you volunteer here?" Most successful corporate attorneys don't spend their evenings teaching financial literacy to abuse survivors. Andre was quiet for a moment. "My mother was in an abusive marriage before she met my father. Financial abuse, emotional abuse, all of it. She got out, but it took her years to recover. I grew up watching her rebuild her life piece by piece. So when I became a lawyer, I promised myself I'd help other women do the same. I'm sorry she went through that." "Me too. But she's one of the strongest people I know. Kind of like someone else I've met recently." Naomi felt something warm unfold in her chest. Not the desperate passion she'd felt for Trevor in the beginning, but something steadier. Safer. "I'm not ready for anything serious," she said honestly. "I know. I'm not asking for serious. I'm just asking to keep having dinner with you sometimes." "I'd like that." And for the first time since finding Trevor with Brittany, Naomi felt like maybe, eventually, she could be happy again. The letter arrived at Naomi's office 3 months later, forwarded from the prison where Trevor was serving his sentence. She recognized his handwriting on the envelope. Her assistant, Rachel, hovered nervously. "Should I throw it away?" Naomi stared at the envelope for a long moment. She'd successfully avoided all contact with Trevor since the trial. He tried calling, sending messages through mutual friends, even having his lawyer reach out. She'd ignored everything. But curiosity got the better of her. "No, it's fine. Thank you, Rachel." Alone in her office, she opened the envelope. Naomi, I know you probably won't read this, but I have to try. I need to tell you something important. It's about your business sale. There were other people involved in stealing from you, not just me. People on your executive team. They're still out there and they're doing it to other companies. I know I have no right to ask for your help or your forgiveness. But this information could protect other people from what I did to you. Please just meet with me once. Let me tell you what I know. Trevor. Naomi read the letter twice, then crumpled it and threw it in the trash. 2 hours later, she dug it back out. She called Sharon. I got a letter from Trevor. He says there were other people involved in the theft. It's probably a manipulation tactic, Sharon said immediately. Trying to get you to visit him, to engage with him. Don't fall for it. But what if it's true? Then he can tell the FBI. He doesn't need you for that. Naomi knew Sharon was right. But the thought that there might be others, people she trusted, people she'd worked with, still out there committing crimes, it bothered her. I'm not visiting him, she said firmly. But can we tell the FBI about this letter? I'll handle it. 3 days later, Detective Barnes called Naomi directly. The FBI investigated Mr. Turner's claims. He gave them names of 2 other people allegedly involved in corporate espionage. The Bureau is looking into it. Is it real? We're not sure yet. It could be legitimate information or it could be him trying to reduce his sentence by cooperating. Either way, you don't need to be involved. Naomi felt relief wash over her. Trevor would face consequences for his actions regardless of whether he helped now. And she didn't have to see him, didn't have to engage with his manipulation. But the incident reminded her that healing wasn't linear. She still felt angry sometimes. Still felt betrayed. Still woke up some mornings wondering how she'd missed all the signs. She talked about it with Andre over coffee one Saturday morning. He wrote to me, she said. From prison. Trying to get me to visit him. Andre's expression darkened. What did you do? I gave the letter to the FBI and blocked all future correspondence. But it made me realize I'm still not over what happened. You don't have to be over it, Andre said gently. You went through something traumatic. Healing takes time. Sometimes I feel like I'm doing great and then something small happens and I'm right back there, standing in his office doorway. That's normal. Trauma doesn't work on a schedule. He reached across the table and took her hand, a simple gesture of support. But you're not in that doorway anymore. You're here, building something incredible, helping people, living your life. That's what matters. Naomi squeezed his hand, grateful for his patience and understanding. Meanwhile, across town, Brittany was dealing with her own consequences. The FBI had offered her a plea deal in exchange for testimony against Trevor, which she'd taken. She received 3 years probation and community service instead of prison time. But her life had fallen apart anyway. She'd lost her job, her reputation, her relationship. Her daughter lived primarily with her ex-husband now, who'd used the criminal charges to get full custody. She tried reaching out to Naomi again, this time through email. The message sat in Naomi's spam folder, unread and unanswered. Some bridges once burned could never be rebuilt. And Naomi was perfectly fine with that. I need to show you something, Andre said one evening, his eyes bright with excitement. They were at Naomi's new apartment, a penthouse she'd purchased after finally leaving the hotel. It had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture, and absolutely no memories of Trevor. What is it? Naomi asked, setting down her wine glass. Andre pulled out his laptop and opened a presentation. Remember how you mentioned wanting to create tools to help women protect themselves financially? Yes. I've been working on something. A technology platform that allows women to monitor their credit, track unusual account activity, and get alerts if anyone tries to open accounts in their name. It includes educational resources, direct connections to legal help, and a private network where women can share experiences safely. Naomi leaned forward, studying the mock-ups on the screen. The interface was clean, simple, empowering. Andre, this is incredible. When did you have time to do all this? Late nights, weekends. I've been talking to some software developers I know, and they're willing to build it if we can fund the initial development. How much are we talking about? Around $200,000 for the first version. Naomi didn't hesitate. I'll fund it. We launched this through the foundation, make it free for any woman who needs it. Are you sure? That's a lot of money. I have $50 million sitting in investments. I can afford $200,000 to help protect women from what happened to me. Andre smiled, and something in his expression made Naomi's heart skip. You're amazing, you know that? I'm practical. You're both. He closed the laptop and moved closer to her on the couch. Naomi, I need to tell you something. Okay? I've loved watching you build all of this. The foundation, the work you're doing, the way you've turned your pain into purpose. And I love spending time with you. I love our dinners and our coffee dates and our strategy sessions. I love how passionate you are about helping people. Naomi's breath caught. Andre, I know you said you weren't ready for anything serious. And if you're still not ready, that's okay. But I needed you to know that I'm falling for you. Not the idea of you, not the successful entrepreneur or the foundation director. Just you. The woman who makes terrible puns when she's nervous and who cries during commercials about sheltered dogs. Naomi felt tears prick her eyes. I cry at one commercial and you never let me forget it. It was very cute. She laughed, wiping her eyes. I'm scared. I trusted Trevor completely and look what happened. I know. And I can't promise I'll never hurt you or disappoint you because humans are imperfect. But I can promise I'll never lie to you. I'll never steal from you. And I'll never make you feel like your success threatens me. Naomi looked at this good man, this patient man, this man who'd spent months proving through actions, not words, that he was different. I'm falling for you too, she admitted. It terrifies me, but I am. Can terrified people still kiss? Andre asked, his tone light but his eyes serious. I think they can. He kissed her gently, carefully, like she was something precious. And for the first time in over a year, Naomi let herself believe in possibilities again. Over the next 6 months, they built the protection platform together. Naomi provided funding and strategic direction, while Andre handled the legal framework and partnerships. They soft-launched it through the foundation, and within weeks, 5,000 women had signed up. The platform worked exactly as designed, catching several cases of financial fraud before they could escalate. Women shared stories in the private network, supporting each other through divorces, credit repair, and legal battles. Naomi's foundation grew from a local organization to a national presence. She hired more staff, opened chapters in 3 other cities, and started a scholarship program for women rebuilding their careers after financial abuse. And through it all, Andre was there. Not controlling her vision, not trying to take credit, just supporting and celebrating her success. I have something to tell you, Naomi said one evening as they walked through the park near her apartment. Good news or bad news? Good news, I think. I've been approached about starting another tech company. Some venture capitalists want to invest in scaling up the protection platform, making it commercial while keeping a free version for the foundation. That's amazing. What did you tell them? I told them I needed to think about it. Building another company means less time for the foundation. Less time for us. Andre stopped walking and turned to face her. Naomi, don't make decisions about your career based on our relationship. If you want to build this company, build it. I'm not going anywhere. You say that now. And I'll say it a year from now, 5 years from now. Your success doesn't threaten me. It never will. Naomi felt something release in her chest, a fear she hadn't realized she was carrying. Then let's build a company, she said. That's my girl. She smiled, finally comfortable with being someone's girl again. Because this time, it was a choice she was making with clear eyes and a healed heart. 2 years after finding Trevor in his office, Naomi stood backstage at the New York Stock Exchange, preparing for the biggest moment of her new company's life. Secure Her Technologies was about to go public. The protection platform had exploded beyond her wildest projections. They now had 2 million users across 15 countries. The technology had caught over 10,000 cases of fraud, preventing an estimated $300 million in losses. And today they were ringing the opening bell. Ready? Andre asked, straightening his tie. He joined the company as chief legal officer 6 months ago, bringing his expertise and his unwavering support. I think so, Naomi said, smoothing down her royal blue dress. This is surreal. You've earned every bit of this. Rachel poked her head backstage. They're ready for you, Ms. Brooks. Naomi took Andre's hand and walked out onto the platform overlooking the trading floor. Cameras flashed. The crowd cheered. She looked out at the people gathered. Her team, her board of directors, representatives from the foundation, women whose lives had been changed by the platform they'd built. This was nothing like the loneliness she'd felt standing in Trevor's office doorway. This was community, purpose, triumph. She rang the bell and applause erupted through the exchange. Secure Her Technologies opens at $45 per share, the announcer called, and the number began climbing immediately. By the end of the day, Naomi's stake in the company was worth $200 million. She turned her worst betrayal into her greatest success. That evening, Andre took her to a small restaurant they'd been to on their first unofficial date. Nothing fancy, just good food and privacy. "I need to ask you something," he said after they'd ordered. Naomi's heart jumped. "Okay." Andre pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it, revealing a simple diamond ring. "I know we've only been officially together for a year and a half. I know you've been through hell and back. But I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life supporting your dreams, celebrating your victories, and being your partner in everything. Will you marry me?" Naomi looked at the ring, then at Andre's hopeful face. She thought about Trevor's manipulation, his lies, his betrayal. And then she thought about Andre's patience, his honesty, his consistent love. "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I'll marry you." He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, and the other diners in the restaurant burst into spontaneous applause. 6 months later, they married in a small ceremony at the foundation's headquarters, surrounded by the women they'd helped and the team they'd built together. Naomi wore a simple white dress, no veil, no elaborate production. Just love and commitment and hope for the future. That same week, across town, Trevor was released from prison after serving 2 years of his 5-year sentence. He walked out to nothing. No job, no reputation, no future. The restitution payments would follow him for the rest of his life. He tried to reach out to Naomi again, but his messages went unanswered. She'd moved on completely. A month after the wedding, Naomi stood in the foundation's conference room preparing for their annual gala. They'd raised $15 million that year, helping over 5,000 women escape financial abuse and rebuild their lives. "You should say something tonight," Andre suggested. "About the journey, about what all of this means." "I wouldn't know where to start." "Start with the truth." That night, standing before a ballroom of donors, survivors, and supporters, Naomi spoke from her heart. 3 years ago, my life fell apart in the worst way possible. I lost my marriage, my trust, and my sense of safety. But I didn't lose myself. And with help from incredible people," she looked at Andre, at Sharon who sat at a table near the front, at the foundation staff, "I found a way to turn that pain into purpose. Today, Secure Her Technologies protects millions of women from financial fraud. The Phoenix Initiative has helped thousands rebuild their lives. And I've learned that betrayal doesn't have to define you. What matters is what you build from the ashes." The room erupted in applause, and Naomi felt the last piece of her old pain dissolve. She'd won. Not just in court, not just in business, but in life. She'd taken everything Trevor tried to destroy and built an empire from it. And she'd found real love in the process. Not the desperate, blind trust she'd had before, but something stronger. Something built on honesty, respect, and 2 people choosing each other every single day. As the gala continued around her, Andre pulled her onto the dance floor. "Happy?" he asked. "Incredibly," she said and meant it. Because this life she'd built, this work she did, this love she'd found, was real. And nothing could take it away.